Good day, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the Q operation and the plan to save humanity. I will also talk to you about what it means to be an Anon, or digital soldier with his feet solidly planted in the Q drops, operating in these complex and unprecedented times. Q explains in many post-call drops about the existence of a global crime syndicate and connects them to a satanic cult and crimes against the little ones. The picture is painted of a group of hidden, high-level elites controlling the whole world. Many of their crimes are discussed, such as election fraud and brainwashing of the populace through news media which they wholly control. There is mention of crimes such as flooding Western nations with migrants and illegal aliens, banking and financial system crimes by the central banking system and Federal Reserve, the Russiagate hoax, and more. But Q is not just about telling you of crimes and leaving you hopeless. There is much more. Anons are the most optimistic of people, because Q reassures us of a plan to save humanity. We learn from Q that Donald Trump was asked to run for president to help with this plan to save us all. As well, by the time Q first began to post in late 2017, it told us that the war we were in had already been won. In fact, this is a prominent theme in the Q drops. The emphasis on how the war has already been won, victory is certain, and nothing can stop what is coming. So for instance, if Q heavily emphasizes that the war is already won and nothing can stop what is coming, then if you're fearful, doubtful, worried that the cabal is still running things, that the white hats will lose, you're not really an Anon. Anons are people who have a strong foundation. This foundation is not only the Q drops, but also in their critical thinking skills. Ability to think clearly, logically, with good discernment, applying what they know from the drops to world events. One of my goals in this talk with you today is to explain some of the key elements or indeed qualifiers of being an Anon. The idea being that one has to be solidly founded in the Q drops in order to truly be an Anon. It's similar to a person who claims to believe in God, but every few weeks, if something upsetting happens to them, causing them to doubt whether God exists, then that isn't a person who actually believes in God. If you really believe in God, then that belief isn't going to change every few weeks or because some bad thing happened. Either you have a strong foundation or you don't. Likewise, people who say they believe in the white hats, but every other day are doubting or second-guessing the white hats, becoming fearful, getting lost in the weeds, don't really believe in white hats, and they are not Anons. Now, sometimes the difficulty is lack of education. They aren't doing enough research. They don't understand the Q operation well enough. But other times, the difficulty is that these are people with a tendency to a negative, fearful, distrusting outlook on life. They may be people with a predilection to keep their head down the figurative toilet. As we read through the drops, we see that we were not given details on just what the white hats would do in their plan to save the world, and we can understand why this was. After all, the criminals, the cabal, would be reading the Q drops as well. So in order to see what the white hats' plan is, we just need to watch events unfold, and then in those events, we are seeing just what their plan is. Now I want to explain another key element of being an Anon, which I refer to as the ability to avoid backward thinking, and instead to think through foundational first principles. First principles thinking again refers to standing on a firm foundation. When you're on a firm foundation, you don't get blown around by the gusts of daily events and news. Rather, you're able to use the first principles you stand on to reason outward from that solid center. Consider how many were thrown off their foundation by the inauguration of Joe Biden in January 2021. Many thought the white hats had somehow failed because Joe Biden was put into office and he wasn't removed from office by the military, as many expected. But this black pill perspective is a failure to view things through the eyes of an Anon. But go back to your foundation. Look at Q drop 14. Drop 14 implies that the white hats can unrig elections. So, if the white hats could unrig the 2016 election to make sure Hillary didn't steal it, then deductive reasoning tells us that therefore they could unrig the 2020 election to make sure Biden didn't steal it, which we see they didn't do. So logic now tells us that the white hats did not want the 2020 election unrigged. They wanted it to be stolen and Biden in office. We may not know why at first, but that's what we can deduce. Now we come to the second part of the foundation of an Anon, which is the ability to apply critical thinking skills to world events and draw conclusions about the white hats' plan. And this begins with what was observed about the 4 years under Biden. What was observed was, simply put, a continuing clown show, an enabling of woke insanity, and the Democratic Party looking more and more openly communist, unhinged and radical. And so, an Anon looking at this can begin to deduce that there was a white hat psyop going on, a plan for unbrainwashing those who've been brainwashed by the cabal. And this plan, as it turned out, involved a movie lasting many years. And so, as regards this Biden clown show, the purpose was clear. This was a staged event, a psyop, a movie, with the purpose of starting to awaken the world about the lunacy of the political left. Anons can also deduce, based on the theme of patriots in control and ultimate victory so emphasized by Q, that for this years-long movie to be successful, white hats would have to control most everything at national and international levels. Consider, for clarity, a film director making a movie, who has random actors wandering around the film set, saying and doing whatever they like, not taking directions from him. That wouldn't work well, would it, if many of the actors in the film are not subject to his direction? Especially if these actors have an intention of ruining his movie or are major figures in his film. So, connecting all these dots and using deductive reasoning, Anons realized that the white hats are doing a movie to awaken humanity, and we can see evidence that they've already won, just in their control of all the actors in the movie. The Q drops don't specifically tell us the white hats will be doing a years-long movie, but there are several drops that make reference to movies, and drop 461 tells us that what makes a movie good is great actors. Also, often there are clues called comms provided by President Trump or other major figures which can confirm our theories. Trump's very frequent use of the phrase central casting is a confirmation of the white hat movie.
I was the perfect person. I was like central casting.
Hey, you know what? And he's central casting. Look at that guy, central casting.
And these are central casting. If I'm doing a movie, I pick you, General.
Central casting.
Very impressive. Oh, you're central casting. Look at this guy. This man's central casting. I watch him all the time. Central casting. He's a real talent, a real guy, and he is central casting. Do we agree? Central casting.
They're central casting, the red suspenders, handsome, beautiful, smart. You couldn't get better central casting.
He is great in every way, and he's central casting. I mean, this is a man that was born for the position.
No, he was central casting like the perfect Supreme Court judge. These guys are central casting. There's nobody in Hollywood that looks like these people. And they're central casting. I've never seen a group of people like this. Everyone's in perfect shape. My friend, central casting. I always call him central casting. Boy, is that central casting, that statement. Does he look like central casting? He look like Tom Cruise, but maybe better. The intellect is extraordinary, and the man is extraordinary. He's central casting. I assume you like these people. I assume it's central casting. Right, boss?
Is this central casting? This is what we want. This is a great, brilliant man. Looks like, I don't know, very tough. Central casting. When you talk about central casting.
This guy's out of central casting, I'm telling you. Yeah, these guys are central casting, like from a movie. Central casting, you can't cast them. What do you have? You don't have anybody in Hollywood that looks like these guys. And a great looking central casting, and we have great generals, a great central casting general. Look at that.
Ne kadar güzel insanlar.
Central casting.
Onlarla ilişki kurmak ne kadar.
He's like central casting for ownership of a hotel.
Everyone is central casting. Central casting. Glasses, pad, boom. I watch Judge Kavanaugh, who's central casting.
You are so central casting.
So I'm sure you'll agree that's a lot of central casting comments, yet these comments are from a span of many years, and people won't see this if they're not carefully listening to all he says, which some Anons do. So, the way we learn what the white hat plan is to watch events unfold and see what they are doing. For the most part, that means what they're doing in the movie, since most everything we see happening is part of this elaborate movie. There's another aspect of the Q operation which weaves into this, which is the part we call devolution, or continuity of government. Devolution is the US military's plan about how to run the nation in a situation where the entire government has been compromised or overtaken by a foreign power or crime syndicate. The key idea of devolution is that if the entire government has been infiltrated by a foreign power or crime syndicate, then that infiltrated government is null and void, and the military steps in to run the nation. This is only logical, right? Can you imagine a nation being overtaken by a foreign power and that nation's military throwing up their hands and saying, oh well, now they run the government, there's not much we can do? The US military is running everything in the background, while instructing those in government office to operate under their directions. And it's not just those in government operating under white hat military directions. We can deduce more from a few key executive orders that Trump enacted, such as 33818 and 33848. These executive orders would allow seizure of assets from any individual, business, or entity involved in the kinds of serious crimes, such as election fraud or crimes against humanity, that we know the cabal criminals were involved in. Thus, we begin to get the picture. The White Hat's military already controls everything in the background, both in the US and abroad, and at the same time is showing the public an elaborate movie, a movie meant to catch them up to speed on what's already happened. This movie isn't merely meant to teach people there is a cabal. It's also meant to educate all humanity on all types of cabal crimes, all the ways we've been preyed upon and enslaved, and to show how all this was done. Now, some may ask, why this elaborate years-long movie? Why didn't President Trump just come out on day one and tell people about the cabal and start arresting the criminals? Well, this gets to the sophisticated understanding that the White Hats have about human psychology, which is expressed in the cue drops as "you cannot tell them, you must show them." You've seen this, how you can't expect people to believe something just because you tell them, especially if it goes against their worldview. People learn best through personal experience, seeing things for themselves. So, back to the White Hats allowing the 2020 election to be stolen. Many people awakened to the reality of the cabal through this election theft and the 2020 pandemic. An enormous number of people awoke in 2020. So you can see that if the White Hats had not allowed these things to occur, there would not have been this awakening. And as the years of the movie wound onward, more and more people awakened. Now, getting back to what I said about how most of what you see isn't real, but staged. Consider the Department of Doge, how it ran right out the gate in January 2025, uncovering fraud in various departments and agencies of the US government. Well, it wouldn't be possible for that much fraud to be discovered to the detail it was, in such a short time. So we know that all this was simply a staged movie, showing the public things that had already been found, likely years prior. Another example of part of the White Hat movie is what we can call the Mamdani show in New York City. Among other things, one way of knowing you're seeing a movie is by asking who benefits from the situation. If you see an openly socialist or communist person running for office, promising all sorts of goodies and they win, and then raise prices, raise taxes, and renege on their promises while conditions get worse in the streets, you can see who benefits. Not the socialists, the White Hats who've succeeded in showing people, not telling them, but showing them how socialism fails.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want no friggin' part of it. New York, New York. These Hugo Boss shoes are longing to stray and take an Uber to LaGuardia, Ta-ta, New York. I want to wake up in a city that's safe and free.
Another factor important to Anons in gaining insights is to watch memes and parodies to see how humor is being used to put a spotlight on ridiculous situations.
Memes, parody, and satire are especially powerful in driving home a point to people, and parody can get around, thus defeat people's psychological defenses quite effectively.
Now, you may well ask, when will this years-long movie end? And what happens afterward? We don't know the timeline, but we do know that once the public has been sufficiently brought up to speed, we reach the justice phase.
And the justice phase will not be in the civil justice system, which has been compromised. It will be military tribunals. That's not actually stated by Q, however, it has been deduced by Anons and validated by posts from Trump.
And now, as I close this talk, I want to emphasize that we have a lot of comms from both President Trump and his posts, as well as the Il Donaldo account, which he confirmed that he runs.
Are you Pappy Trumpo?
Yeah, I think so.
These comms, and especially the humor in the Il Donaldo account, are meant to keep us Anons upbeat and positive through this several years-long wait we've had as the White Hat's plan continues to unfold. And now I want to leave you with a very interesting post and its music, which connects the White Hats to myself in the movie about me, V for Vendetta.
Permit me then, in lieu of the more commonplace sobriquet, to suggest the character of this dramatis persona. Voila! In view, a humble vaudevillian veteran, cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the vicissitudes of fate. This visage, no mere veneer of vanity, is a vestige of the vox populi, now vacant, vanished. However, this valorous visitation of a bygone vexation stands vivified, and has vowed to vanquish these venal and virulent vermin, vanguarding vice and vouchsafing the violently vicious and voracious violation of volition.
Do you like music, Mr. Finch?
That music.
Yes. His music.
Was he?
He was Edmund Dantes. And he was my father. And my mother. My brother. My friend. He was you. And me. He was all of us.